Hey guys, Robbie here from CrossFit South Bend. Today we're going to talk about how to actually succeed at keeping this year's New Year's resolution. Now, I know many of you have experienced in previous years, setting some New Year's resolution, whether it could be about food or health or finances or just, hanging out with people you like and avoiding people who kind of are toxic elements in your life. And it seems like every year the same process goes on. Oh, this will be the year. Finally, this will be the year, right? I'm gonna diet, I'm gonna exercise, I'm gonna get myself healthy again, and lo and behold, it doesn't actually happen. And I've personally had this happen to me in the past. I'm sure many of you out there have had this happen to you. So how is it that people actually succeed at turning a New Year's resolution into a successful habit that on December 31st of the following year, they're actually still following? It's something that they're actually still incorporating into their life. So today we're gonna talk about a few of the hurdles that people encounter when trying to make a New Year's resolution stick, and we're going to talk about how to actually overcome those hurdles. So the first hurdle, I think, is outlandish expectations. Basically just the idea that if you've been eating really poorly for the past 5 years or 10 years or 15 or 20 years, however many years, that in the space of 30 days or a 21-day detox, you're going to magically cure all the bad stuff that came before. Now, there's nothing wrong with doing those things to try to, get a really good head start on getting healthy, but there is something wrong, I think, with, focusing just on those kind of short-term fixes for a long-term goal. As cliche as it sounds, getting healthy again is a marathon, not a sprint. Losing weight is a marathon, not a sprint. And you're just absolutely setting yourself up for failure if you think that in the space of 30 days, things are just going to be magically turned around. Now, again, that's not to say that things can't be changed for the better, but it is to say that you've got to go into things with realistic expectations. So along with that, I think one of the other important things to realize is that we can't just think, well, I'm just going to, have whatever I want for the holidays and, just kind of gorge myself, and then January 1st, magically, everything has changed and, I'm just going to go completely clean and be okay and think that that's going to last you the rest of the year. It doesn't really work like that. You have to make gradual, habitual changes that are going to last long term. So instead of saying something like, on December 31st, 2015, I'm having, 5 cans of soda a day, and, on January 1st, I'm going to have 0 cans of soda a day. How about 5 cans of soda and then 4 cans of soda the next week, and then 3 cans of soda the next week, and then 2 cans of soda the next week, and then 1 can of soda the next week. And then when you're down to 0 cans of soda, move on to, well, are you having processed foods? Are you eating out at restaurants too frequently? And then, what other elements of your diet need change? Do you need to eat more produce? Do you need to exercise more? It's not quite as sexy. And when we live in this culture where, on TV, I won't name the name of the show, but we all know which one I'm talking about, where you see someone lose, 200 pounds in the space of 8 weeks or something like that because they have this gigantic amount of weight to lose. People think, well, if it isn't immediate and, just enormous amounts of weight loss, then it's not really worth doing it. That's not really the way it works. I think it really kind of hinders people from making a long-term change by thinking that it just has to be so dramatic and it needs to be this, incredible thing that when you come out for the finale of the show, right? People are stunned at how much weight you've lost. Now that's great for the people who have lost that weight. That's amazing, and it's incredible that they've transformed their lives. But most of us don't weigh somewhere on the order of 500 or 600 pounds. We don't need to lose 300 to 400 pounds. Most of us are in the realm where maybe we're 30 pounds overweight or 50 pounds overweight, or maybe on the higher end 100 pounds overweight, and we need to get back to health. And we don't have superstar trainers training us through the gym or writing our food journals each week. We need to do this stuff on our own, and in order to do it on our own, we need to have our own internal motivation. And the way to successfully do that, again, is these small, gradual, habitual changes, these wins. If you go out on January 1st and you say, well, no, I'm just cutting all that bad stuff out of my life for good, for the rest of my life, it's going to be very, very difficult to stick to that long term. Now, again, I think those types of 30-day challenges can be useful and helpful, but I do think there's something that need to be worked up to. I do think that there are things that you've got to gradually build yourself up to. Let's say, for example, let me take an example of someone who the type of person I might typically work with. They send me their first food journal, and I look at it and they're eating, let's say, 80 to 90% processed foods. Let's be a little bit more charitable. Let's say 60 to 70% processed foods, and they're having maybe 30 to 40% home cooked meals and some vegetables here and there. It's going to be an enormous task for them to go from 60 to 70% processed foods and eating out at restaurants to 0% and then bolstering up those home cooked meals. Now that's the eventual goal, but we have to gradually and steadily work up to that point. It's not just something that's going to magically happen overnight. Now, along with this idea of gradual and habitual change, we have to keep in mind that science has pretty conclusively shown that most long-term habits take at a minimum, an absolute minimum, 67 days to be ingrained. What does that mean? That means, your 21-day detox that you're doing just to, get ready for a wedding or something like that is, a short-term fix for a long-term issue. It's not really fixing the long-term issue. It's fixing the symptom, but not the cause. So, when we think about succeeding at these long-term goals, we have to think on maybe a longer time horizon. Again, when you look at these TV shows, you think, oh man, I got to get all this stuff done and get healthy in 6 to 8 weeks, even though for the past 5 or 10 years, stuff has been pretty unhealthy, perhaps, in your life. So you have to think on a longer time horizon. So at a minimum 67 days, we here at CrossFit South Bend, we run a nutrition challenge in January that lasts 90 days for precisely this reason. We think that it's much more important to instill a long-term habit than to just have kind of a quick fix, thing that's going to just fix the symptom, but not the cause. But even with the 90-day nutrition challenge, even beyond that, we have to realize that, that just lays the foundation. That just lays the foundation for success. There has to be other long-term things going on to actually make it so that on December 31st, 2016, you are actually succeeding. Okay, so far we've talked about, gradual change that becomes habitual, these kind of small wins along the way, going from 5 sodas a day to 4 sodas a day. We've talked about kind of increasing the time horizon, not thinking about it in terms of, 2 weeks or 21 days or 30 days, but maybe at a minimum 67 days up to 90 days or 120 days to really start to begin to turn things around. But there are other things to keep in mind as well. One of the most effective things you can possibly do to help you succeed, not just at a food New Year's resolution or a health New Year's resolution, but any New Year's resolution, is have some accountability. And I've seen this in myself when I've tried to set New Year's resolutions. I've seen it in others. When you have some accountability, when you have someone who is holding you accountable to your own goals, that is going to make all the difference in the world. Why? Because at the end of the day, when you are judge, jury, and executioner, when it comes to the rules that you set for yourself, you're going to say, oh, well, on Jan 1, I said, well, I'm not going to have any soda anymore, but I made that rule up, and, well, I can change that rule if I want on January 12th, let's say, when you're having a craving for soda. But if you know that you're going to be answerable to a coach, or to a friend, or to a family member, if you know there's someone who's actually going to objectively hold you accountable to what you said, maybe you're going to have to hand in a food journal, let's say, that's going to make a huge difference to you actually sticking to your goal. It's going to make it so that you can't just say, oh, well, I made the rule so I can break the rule. You're accountable to someone else now. And it has to be someone that you respect. It's got to be someone that you hold in high regard, someone that you're going to say, if I said to this person, I'm actually going to do this, then I'm actually going to do this. And that's going to help you solidify those changes. In addition to something like a food journal, having weights, measurements, and pictures, let's say, where each month you're going to need to go in to get those things done. And you can't just say in the middle of trying to change your health and nutrition, oh, well, I'm just going to have whatever I want to eat, because you know in 2 weeks you're going to have to go back in and get weighed and measured. In addition to some form of accountability and some sort of objective standard that can actually hold you accountable to your goals, this person, whether it's a family member, a friend, or a coach, can be a source of support. No one, including me, no one has infinite willpower. There is no such thing as infinite willpower. And a lot of times the way we think about willpower in our culture is just this magical thing that's summoned from on high, right? You know, when you're in the grocery store and you haven't had a lot of sleep the previous night because your kids were up and you had a really long day at work, and you see that candy bar that you really like, but you're trying to be on a new diet, you're just supposed to magically summon this willpower from the sky and it's going to strike you like a bolt of lightning, and then you magically resist the candy bar. Except that's not really how things work, right? Willpower isn't an infinite quantity. It's a finite quantity, and it's something that, like strength, for example, you build up over time. The same way someone couldn't just come into the gym tomorrow, never having trained, and say, well, I'm gonna go to the bar and back squat 500 pounds. You can't just summon up an infinite amount of willpower. You have to build it up over time. This goes back to the idea that we just mentioned before of these small, gradual wins that help you build up a habit. The same way, on the quest to get a 500-pound squat, you have to pass through squatting 100 pounds, and then 105 pounds, and then 110 pounds, and then week after week after week, increasing those small wins. The same way, you need to have these small wins when it comes to trying to get to the point where you eat healthy, where you go from 0 servings of vegetables a day to 1 serving of vegetables, to 2 servings of vegetables, to 3 servings of vegetables, so on and so forth, week by week. And with this idea of no one having infinite willpower, it is tremendously, tremendously helpful to have a source of support and encouragement, someone who can guide you, someone who can help you along the way when, we all have those days, right? We all have those days where, it's been a really bad day at the office, or your kids are crying and screaming, or you're just not feeling up to it and you feel like, man, why am I even doing this? I'm having a hard time sticking to the plan. It makes a tremendous amount of difference, not just to have a source of accountability, not just someone to say that you did this or didn't do this, but someone to support you, someone to encourage you when you feel like, man, I just can't go further. We all need some sort of partner, whether it's a friend or a family member or a coach, to help us along and guide us when we are trying to make these changes. Because again, no one has infinite willpower, and there will come a time, no matter what New Year's resolution you set, whether it's food related, health related, money related, what have you, where you will feel like, I just don't want to do this. Why? Because the precise reason why you had this New Year's resolution in the first place is because for however many previous years you had been doing the exact opposite, and now you want to change that and it's become a habit. The old way of doing things had become a habit, something that had become kind of calcified in the way you do things, and now you want to change it. It's really, 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 really difficult to break a habit that's gone on for a long time unless you have this source of support, this source of accountability, and unless you make these small, gradual changes over a long time horizon that are actually going to help you, get to where you want to be. So, to review, we want to make kind of these smaller, gradual changes over the long term, having a longer time horizon for making these changes, no shorter than 67 days, and I would argue far longer, just to get a start on making these changes. Remember, we want to make these changes over the long term, not just for the next 30 days, the next 60 days, or even the next 90 days, but the next year and coming years. Having a source of accountability, having a source of support. And that support can be many people. It doesn't need to necessarily just be one family member or one friend or coach. You could even potentially join in with a bunch of people. This is one of the most effective things that we've found when you have kind of a group atmosphere, a bunch of people who are striving for the same goal, to hold each other accountable, to hold each other to task for what they're trying to do, to support each other when they're trying to achieve this goal. And again, this is one of the reasons why we do the Whole 90 Nutrition Challenge. So, in order to actually make successful long-term goals that you're actually going to stick to, you need to set up these small wins along the way that are going to make a huge difference to your mental ability to continue. Don't make it so that you say, well, December 31st, I'm going from 5 cans of soda a day to 0 cans of soda a day. You can do something like that, and in certain contexts, I do think certain things like that can be effective, but I do think there needs to be a lead-up period. I do think there needs to be a transition period where you work your way up, you get these small wins along the way, and then you make those changes. Make the time horizon broader. Make it so that we're talking about the next year worth of changes rather than the next 30 days worth of changes. You would be astounded at what you can accomplish in 6 months to a year. You just have to think in that kind of broader time horizon. Get someone who holds you accountable. Get someone who isn't just a yes man, so to speak, right? Not someone who isn't just going to say, if you have a friend who you want to hold you accountable, but they just basically agree with everything you say, that's not really going to be the best person to hold you to your New Year's resolution, right? You have to get someone who's actually going to hold you accountable, someone who's going to say, you didn't do what you said you were going to do, so we need to go back next week and we need to try again and see if you can actually accomplish this small task along the way that we're trying to get to help you achieve your long-term goal. And you need to have someone who's supportive. I think the two of these together is really important. You can't just say someone who holds you accountable. This boot camp model, again, going back to the TV show that we see all the time on TV of, I'm just going to scream at you loud enough until you listen to what I'm saying and that will change your ways, I think is just silly and unproductive. The person who holds you accountable also needs to be the person who can support you. Someone who is kind and understanding and someone who can guide you along the way to you achieving your goals, and who's been there. Someone who understands what it's like to lose weight. Someone who understands what it's like to go through health struggles. Someone who understands the path and knows that it takes time, and someone who's able to support and encourage you, and someone who cares about you. Someone who doesn't just care about yelling at you and saying you didn't do what you're supposed to do. That is a component of holding you accountable, saying that you need to do what you said you were going to do, but it's also a very important component of coaching that you need to support the person as well. All right, guys, so hopefully now you have a few ideas about how to actually make your New Year's resolution stick. If it just so happens that you might have a food-related or a health-related or a fitness-related New Year's resolution, we are running in January our 90-day nutrition challenge, where we challenge you for 90 days to eat real whole food, to avoid processed foods, sugar, soda, alcohol, and a few other things in the service of being healthy. We're going to do this with a big group, weekly talks, weekly food journals, weights, measurements, and pictures, basically all the stuff I just mentioned as a way to help you get better and to actually achieve your goals will be a part of this challenge. So if you guys are interested in being a part of something like that, check out CrossFitSouthBend.com where we have all the details. And I really, really hope that this is the year that you're finally able to stick to your New Year's resolutions and achieve your goals. All right, guys, thanks so much for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.